our special session, Fund of Funds, a Smarter Way of Investments. This is the fifth session of our ongoing series with Mirae Asset Mutual Funds. I'm happy to be joined by our experts, Umesh Kumar Della, Head ETF Sales, Mirae Asset Investment Managers India Private Limited, and Harsh Kumar, Co-founder and Managing Partner, Zwest Financial Services LLP. Today's session is going to talk about Fund of Funds, the categories, the benefits, and what all it offers for the investors and how they can take advantage of investing in top performing mutual funds. So let me start with you, Harsh. Talking about multi-manager funds, what exactly are these fund of funds?
So there are two ways in which a fund can be constructed. So one is, you can have a construction of fund which is basis certain formulas, certain rules, and the underlying can be certain existing funds which are already there in the market. So that is called a fund of fund approach, where you say that we rely more on quantitative data than qualitative parameters to arrive at which fund and how the allocation has to happen. While historically, if you see, we were more reliant on the qualitative parameters, but off late we are seeing a lot of innovation happening in passive space, smart beta space, or fund of funds, where a lot of emphasis is being given on data. And since data is very, very critical these days and data has become extremely important, we are seeing encouraging result from this approach as well.
Mhm. Right. So coming to you, Umesh, talking about passive investing, how do you think it can really benefit and how does it work for investors? Also, if you could tell what are the benefits of investing in a fund of fund?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. So actually, what happens in India, we are at a very, I would say, nascent stage from 2014 onwards, when India actually started talking about the passive investing through ETF route, and now EPFO started with EPFO, and then now more and more retail investors are participating. But in India, in country like India, where the demat holding is something which is very, I would say, again at a nascent stage. People are now upgrading themselves to do a demat trading and everything, opening up demat accounts. So there are investors who has been investing through mutual fund routes since ages, and they for them to graduate to passive investing, it is taking little time. I think the fund of fund is something which gives them that platform where they can easily graduate to passive investing, where they can get some kind of beta exposure into their portfolio. And obviously there are some benefits to it, like diversification. You can get the access, as I mentioned, to the passive part of the investments, which includes your ETFs, which includes your index funds also. So I mean, that's where investor, from a layman investor perspective, if I have to take exposure in a product where I want to, take some kind of, or I want to buy market, I would say. So then the FOF is a right route, where without having a demat account, you can get exposure, you can get the diversification piece, you can get the access, you can get the asset allocation part to be taken care. The taxation also in FOF now are you can say investor friendly. Also from a a rebalancing point of view, also I would say the FOF is somewhere which cut down the expense or the taxation part for investors first. So net, I would say it's a very good proposition for an investor who really want to take some exposure into passive side, or want to diversified into different asset classes, or say different you can say subclasses of say one segment, like large cap, mid caps, and small cap. So I think FOF is something where investor can easily take a route
Right.
through.
So this sounds very interesting. And Harsh, if you could also tell us, since it's giving exposure to multiple assets, and also like help us understand how do you allocate the funds of an investor within equity, and how do you then determine the allocation within the segments? How does it work?
So first of all, we need to understand, we need to decide how much should be in equity and non-equity, which
Mhm.
means how much should be in riskier asset class and non-riskier asset class. So we need to understand investor in entirety. Now, when we have to understand investor, it's a function of various variables, like what is the ability and willingness of an investor to take risk, what is the time horizon which an investor is looking at, is there any liquidity need in the foreseeable future for the investor from the portfolio, or if an investor is attaching certain goals to her portfolio, and those goals need to be cognizant and aware made aware to the advisor at any point of time whenever that portfolio is being designed. Now, honestly, there is no fixed rule of how much should one have in equity and non-equity, though there are certain heuristic rules and a lot of people talk about 100 minus age and all. But honestly, I feel that those approaches are not very correct approaches, because portfolio management or investment management for any individual is a very, very customized field, and it can't be standardized beyond a point. Now, once we have arrived at basis the profile of the investor as to how much should be in equity, the next question comes, how much should be in large cap, mid cap, and small cap? And that's the question which you asked. There are two approaches to that. One is a layman approach where you say that, look, I'll go by a broader index. Whatever is the allocation in that index, I'll just mirror image that. So in India, we can take an example of say BSE 500, which represent around 93% of India's market capitalization. If I look at the construct today, in BSE 500, we have around 70% plus in large cap, around 20% plus or so in mid cap, around 7 to 8% in small cap. Now, one investor who's looking to mirror image that can allocate as per that. But it is again not a very correct approach, because at the end of the day, what you are doing is you are just following the herd, and you are not trying to create your own asset allocation basis your temperament. Second point which gets missed in this is that you don't end up having geographical or international diversification, which is extremely important in these times. Now, if that approach is not correct, then what are we left with? We are left with a detailed analysis of investors' profile. And two key variables in that are ability and willingness to take risk. Now, the problem is that many investors themselves, if I ask you or if I see for myself, I might not be aware about what is my actual ability to take risk. And when it comes to willingness, an investor might understate or overstate the willingness to take risk. Now, to counter that as advisors, we need to ask a lot of detailed questions. We need to take a lot of subconscious cues, and basis that we need to arrive as to what is the actual profile of the client and what should be the actual allocation in large cap, mid cap, and small cap. Now, once we have designed the portfolio, then again, it can be a conflicting thing, because an investor may say that, look, you have designed my portfolio basis these percentages, but I'm not happy with that. I want a different percentage because of various reasons. In that situation, we have to look at the standard of living risk of an investor. Suppose an investor has a portfolio which is way beyond what he or she would need in his or her lifetime, then we don't mind adapting to what an investor is saying. But if standard of living risk is very, very high, where the portfolio is just enough to meet the goals over the lifetime of an investor, there we try to be assertive and we try to prevail upon. If I have to summarize this, honestly, investment is all about future. No one can be 100% correct about future. There is always a possibility and scope of error. But one or two key pointers which I would tell investors who are watching this is to avoid a few classical mistakes. When you're deciding your portfolio to be allocated between different categories, don't go by past performance, don't go by what momentum is indicating, even don't go by what experts on television and media are indicating, because at the end of the day, their temperament and your temperament would be very, very different. And remember one thing, biggest enemy to any individual's wealth creation is the individual herself. So be very cognizant about it.
Sure. But then some people are still looking at the experts for their, the decision making. But of course, a little bit of research and risk analysis is what is required. So coming back to you, Umesh, like as we've discussed, FOF, they come with a lot of benefits like, liquidity and no requirements of a demand, as you mentioned. So does that make it as a smarter choice when it comes to selecting mutual funds? What is your say?
So basically, as I mentioned, that fund of funds are basically a product or a kind of way of investment where investor can get exposure into different asset classes or maybe different units of mutual funds also. So it's purely depends the way FOF has been created. By that, an investor can easily get the diversified exposure. There are few benefits. If I may elaborate a little more, is that the first and key benefit is, as I mentioned earlier, also diversification, because by investing into different units of mutual funds or ETFs, which invest in different underlying asset classes or assets, that offers diversification to an investor. Second is the access, because investors generally don't get access to different asset classes or don't get access to like asset classes like gold, equity, or debt, or maybe some different sub classes like, as I said, within equity like large cap, mid cap, and small cap. So by FOF, investor can get access to all these asset classes as well as subclasses. Third thing is the small investment, because as we know that investment in India is now still evolving. Still, we are a very limited percentage of overall GDP in terms of our number of pen we have already in India. So the small investor, like to the tune of, if somebody wants to invest say 500 rupees also into funds and want to get exposure into say all three subclasses of say large cap, mid cap, and small cap, then maybe because through FOF investor can get exposure with that sort of amount also. And again, the asset allocation, which is the key, as Harsh also mentioned, the asset allocation is something which is very key for an investor perspective, depending upon his or her risk profiling or their requirements of funds and money. So accordingly, that asset allocation is something which also can be justified here through FOF. And the most important part is the exposure to ETF, because as I said, that ETF is something which is now growing from 2014 onwards. Right now, we are at 3.5 lakh crores kind of overall AUM, which includes majority of part is EPFO, but still, apart from that, also there are still decent amount of investors now entering, but not everybody is having the demat account. So
Right.
to get an exposure into ETF, what they can do is they can choose FOF, where their FOFs are investing in different underlying ETFs, say for a large, mid, and small cap, or maybe large and mid, or maybe some other combination. So that exposure also can be taken by FOF through that. And again, the important part is, as I said, it reduces the tax implications, because within FOF, the FOF does buying and selling of underlying units, and that tax implication is being captured or taken care by FOF itself. So investor at the end landing with a lesser tax implication. Now, the important point is the equity taxation, because if any FOF which invests 90% of its proceedings into say underlying products which is listed on a stock exchange, or that underlying product is investing 90% of its proceeding into direct equity exposure, those kind of FOF will be considered as equity exposure or equity investment. So that taxation implicability, taxation applicability on those sort of investment or those sort of FOF will be of equity. So I think these are the key benefits which FOF comes with. Maybe there are others also, but these are the key benefits which investors can easily experience while investing into FOF.
In fact, besides the tax implications and the requirement of a demat for an ETF and no requirement in case of FOF, could you also help us understand how FOFs are different from an index fund? If you can explain that.
So what happens, the index funds are basically funds which invest like ETF, they invest into underlying securities. But in case of FOF is basically an investment option or I would say the convenient way for investment from an investor perspective, where the investment gets invested into underlying mutual fund or ETF units. So unlike index fund, FOF doesn't buy the direct equities. Point number one. The second option is the fund of fund investment is investing into different number of units, whereas it can be of say equity, debt, or some other asset class, or some other sub asset classes also. In that case, I would recommend investors to look at the you can say nomenclature or the mandate of the underlying product also, what sort of mandate that product has, or whether those mandates are in line with investors mandate or in investors risk profiling also. From a buying perspective, from a say NAV applicability perspective, FOF and index fund both are similar, because in both the cases investor gets the day and NAV. So, and also in case of FOF, what happens? FOF investor will be experiencing the recurring expenses of FOF also, along with the expenses of underlying products or mutual fund where FOF is investing into. So the investor should always look at the recurring expenses of FOF. Also, he or should look at the expenses of underlying products or mutual funds or ETF where the FOF is investing, what sort of expenses that has. So all things put together, it creates a good combination from an investment perspective. To put in a different perspective, the index fund are basically some kind of similarity they have with FOF, but some kind of differences also they have, as I already mentioned here.
Sure. So coming back to you, Harsh, if you could help us understand while constructing the portfolio of an investor, like do you advise taking separate exposures through active large cap, mid cap funds, or a single fund, and what exactly are the pros and cons of each strategy they take?
It's a very interesting question, and honestly, we face this day in, day out. And when we have to decide on taking a single fund versus multiple funds, we can say flexi cap between specific funds. We generally go by three perspectives, which becomes our rules for deciding how to go about it. One is the portfolio at hand, second is the behavior of the investor, and third is the market at that point of time. Now, let me dwell on each one by one. So, coming to portfolio. First of all, when we look at any portfolio, we need to see what is the current asset allocation in that portfolio, and basis the profile of the investor, what is the desired asset allocation. Now, when I have to bridge the gap between current allocation and desired allocation, if the gap is extremely high in a specific category, let's say a client needs 20% of her portfolio in mid cap, but at present the allocation is only 2%. I don't have an option of giving a single fund to that investor of a flexi cap nature, but I need to add a specific mid cap fund to that portfolio because the gap is huge for me to cover. That is the first point. Second point, at any point of time for advisors, whenever we are adding a new fund, we need to increase diversification and we need to reduce correlation in the portfolio. Let me explain it a bit. When you look at your own mutual fund portfolio, you would just look at the names of the fund. You would look at whether those are into flexi cap category, mid cap category, large cap category, and so on. But as advisors, when we look at the portfolio, we look at the underlying stocks in that portfolio. So when I am adding a new fund to an investor's portfolio, I need to see that I am not adding duplication just by having a different name or a different fund where the actual underlying holdings are the same. So I need to study that, and basis that a call needs to be taken. Third point, which Umesh also mentioned, is about investable surplus. For somebody who has a surplus to invest, which is very, very small, it doesn't make sense for us to spread it too thin and allocate into specific fund. A single fund can do the justice in that case. Fourth is about approach to investing. Now, this is a function of cash flow of an investor. There are people who get bonuses once in a year. There are people who have a work profile where they make tons of money at one point of time, but there is no consistency of money. For those investors, when they give us money off and on once in a while, we are more inclined toward a single flexi cap approach because the standard deviation or the volatility of these funds is lower than standalone mid cap and small cap funds. But if an investor is saving on a monthly basis and investing on a regular basis through systematic investment plan, we generally get skewed towards specific funds in mid cap and small cap space also. So this is about the portfolio. Next come the behavior of the investor. Now again, there are two dimensions to that. One, investors who are averse to taking risk. If there is a 5-10% deviation or drawdown in the portfolio, they get extremely perturbed. For this set of investors, we generally follow a flexi cap approach because, as I mentioned, the standard deviation or the volatility in flexi cap is relatively much lower than small cap and mid cap fund. Second is about investors' involvement in the portfolio. So we have all kinds of investors. Some investors track their portfolio very regularly. They are very involved in a conversation with us, in the reviews with us, while some investors are very, very passive. For the first set, even if we have specific fund, it doesn't hurt because at any point of time, if we need to do a course correction, we can do. But for investors who are extremely passive, we generally go by a single fund or a flexi cap approach because I know at the end of the day, there are experts who will do the rebalancing at their end without investor having to actively involve themselves in terms of rebalance of the portfolio. Last and the most important point, which is more of advisors onus, is about valuation. Now, if we see asset allocation as an approach, it is never a fixed number, but it is a band. So for example, if I'm designing your portfolio, I would say, Palvi, you should have 60 to 70% large cap. I will never say you should have a 67% large cap. So when we work in a band, uh, and if there are market dislocations, so there can be times when small cap is relatively cheaper or large cap is relatively cheaper or mid cap. At that point of time, it becomes our responsibility to educate our investors and tell them that, look, there is a dislocation in the market. Let's go to the higher end of your band in terms of asset allocation and take a little tactical or a mid-range strategic call to allocate higher in a specific category rather than following a cookie cutter model. So that's what we end up doing as far as approach to investing is concerned and defining the portfolio is concerned. Now, you asked about pros and cons. Honestly, there is no pros and cons. There is no right tool and no rule is wrong. But like I mentioned, it is a function of the portfolio, it is a function of the behavior, it is a function of the valuation in the market. And basis that, we take a call on how it needs to be done. However, for beginners, and I would take a few points from what Umesh said, and those are very relevant points. If somebody is starting his or her investment journey, I would strongly recommend to go for a single fund because A, you might not have the bandwidth and the ability to rebalance, which experts can do on your behalf. Second, the volatility on the portfolio is going to be much lower than standalone funds. Third, it's easier for you to track because there is only one or two line items which you have to track. Fourth, you will not have returns which are negative or positive with respect to benchmark by a huge margin because like Umesh mentioned, at the end of the day, a single fund which is more diverse across the market will give you a return which is broadly in line with the market. So you will not have extreme negative or positive surprises on the portfolio. So it's a one size fit all approach and all beginners should look at it very aggressively.
Sure. So it means if somebody has to start the investment journey, this could be a good choice to start with.
Definitely. And at some point of time, I would also add one more point. When the portfolio size become extremely big, then it becomes imperative to have both the categories in the portfolio because at that point of time, justification of the portfolio allocation can only be done by adding specific funds also.
Sure, sure. So Umesh, one question that comes to our mind is whether FOF is a passive or an active product, and also if one investor has to start the investment, how does he map the risk and return when it comes to fund of funds?
So I think that's a good question because what happens, like a mutual fund, FOF is also a pass-through product, right? The expenses or the risk of underlying mutual fund or ETF are being passed through to investor, whether it's an active fund, because the FOF can invest into active funds also and can invest into passive products also. If the FOF in investing is investing into ETFs or say index funds, then that sort of passive risk will be passed through to the investor. Similarly, if the FOF investing into active funds, then the active risk will be passed through to the investors in that sense. So from that perspective, if you look at these are, so from an active and passive debate, I would say that debate is happening everywhere now, active versus passive, but we from our perspective, we never say it's active versus passive. But from a FOF perspective, I think FOF can be on both sides. FOF can be active also, FOF can be passive also, because like if some FOF has or there are FOFs in the market which are based on say some dynamic asset some allocation or some dynamic calls taken by the fund managers time to time. So those sort of FOF will be considered as active FOF because fund manager takes call depending upon his conviction or some data points. There are other kind of FOF also which invest into say underlying products are ETFs or say index fund where they are trying to buying the overall broader market. So there that particular ETF or the FOF will be a passive kind of FOF where the now on that case also the FOF can be based on either on a similar static allocation or there can be rule based allocation also. In case of rule-based allocation, what happens that the FOF can give some nominal alpha to the investor, which is over and above the underlying indices. So that's where I would say FOF can be active and it can be passive either ways. It depends upon what sort of exposure, what sort of investment objective you are as an investor you are investing with, and what your advisors call it is on that.
Sure, sure. So Harsh, does it make sense for investors to allocate funds to large cap funds for the long term versus maybe a Nifty 50 ETF? What is your take?
So I would take a cue from Umesh. He was mentioning that there is a debate going on across the world and it's been going on for years now. And I would just try to add our dimensions to that. So honestly, if you ask me, it's not an either or question, it's an and question, which means at any point of time, we should have a complementary strategy in the portfolio by having allocation both in large cap active fund as well as in Nifty 50 ETF or any large cap ETF. And it's a very situational decision. Let me try to explain that. Whenever people say that passive will rule the world and they have their data points to give, if I go India take India as an example, if I go by last SPIVA report, which is the most exhaustive report on this subject, in last 10 years on a trailing basis, if I take large cap fund as a universe, we have seen 68% of the funds which have been underperformed by BSE 100. Now, layman can look at the data and say that, look, last 10 years is a good time frame. We are looking at trailing return and we are looking at 68% of the funds underperforming. So let's go for passive. But I would say it's a question of where we are in the market cycle and how earnings are panning out. Let me try to explain that. Let's go 2 years back before COVID. At that point of time, if we see, returns in the markets were extremely polarized. We had 6 to 7 stocks which were contributing to the entire market return.
Correct.
Now, when you have a situation like that, a passive fund or a Nifty 50 ETF become a very, very good route to invest, because fund managers in active funds, they are not going to take 6, 7 stocks and put entire 70, 80 or 90% of their portfolio into those, because their risk management practices will not allow them to do that, and for the rightful reasons. But on the other hand, if I look at last 2 to 3 quarters, earnings has been broad based. We have been seeing stock performance beyond Nifty 50 and other indices also. And there is a lot of option and scope of bottom up stock picking, delivering better returns than index. At this point of time, having a little more active flavor in the portfolio can help. Now, beyond this, there are certain things which I would want to reiterate here, which investors should understand. One is about the earning cycle, which I explained. But in the technicalities of ETFs versus an active fund, not all ETFs are mirror image of the index, though that's the endeavor of all the fund managers, but in reality, that doesn't happen. So an investor should very actively look at the tracking difference and the tracking error in the ETF, which is under consideration for that investor. Second, if I look at the SEBI guidelines and if I look at how active fund managers are bound to, allocate in large cap fund, 80% of the money has to be allocated in large cap stocks. 20% of the money is with the fund manager's discretion to be invested by. Now, when you have an opportunity in the market beyond Nifty 50, and if fund management team is smart, they can use that 20% exposure and generate alpha over the portfolio. Third, people who buy ETFs only for expense minimization, and if expense minimization is the goal, there also I would reiterate, all ETFs don't have the same expense structure.
Right.
All active funds don't have the same expense structure. Within an active fund, there is a regular plan and direct plan. So if you're looking at expense minimization approach, then you should look at all these variables and then decide. Lastly, a point which Umesh also mentioned, that ETFs are pass-through funds, which means even a stock which doesn't have the merit to be a part of the portfolio ends up being a part of your portfolio because it is a part of an index. While when active fund managers take a call on which stock should be a part of the portfolio, they have various models. Say, for example, BMV model, where they would look at business, they would look at management, they would look at valuation. And if they feel that the stock is not supposed to be a part of the portfolio, it doesn't get allocated.
Right.
So in the end, I would say that, it is definitely not an either or question. One should not be 100% passive or 100% active in terms of allocation. One should look at a complementary approach basis one's temperament.
Sure, sure. And also, Mesh, what is the aim of having an FOF in the portfolio, investing in underlying ETFs, and what are the various strategies, according to you, on the basis of which allocation is then done in underlying ETFs in FOF products?
Yeah. So before that, I just would like to add a few points what Harsh mentioned. I think Harsh is rightly mentioned the points which we are also trying to demonstrate to the market, that it's like active and passive, and the space for active and passive is always there for everybody's portfolio, depending upon what sort of approach that investor is having towards the investments. And maybe through FOF, investor can get a global exposure, or maybe some other underlying products where he cannot go buying a normal active fund or normal, say, index, that the FOF can help him or her. As far as investments, as far as your question is concerned, I think FOF is something which is, whenever as an investor, I also would like to invest. There are some questions in minds most of the time, that when should I invest, which all categories of indices I should invest into, what should be the allocation percentage, how the rebalancing should be done. So there are too many questions which are there in investors' mind, and in those cases, the FOF complements in some of the queries there and try to answer or address those queries. Like the first and foremost, benefit of FOF, I would say here would be to give a cost-effective way of allocation. Second would be you can get a exposure into underlying index in 3 different or maybe 4 5 different indices where you think that you want to get exposure into in terms of asset allocation. And obviously if the FOF is based on say some or it if it is some rule based investing is happening, then the possibly you can get some nominal alpha also over the index. So fund of fund maybe may invest into domestic equity exchange traded funds also. The aim of such fund is to provide investors the passive exposure into large cap, mid cap segment of the market by say investing into low cost ETFs and generate nominal alpha, as I said, by changing allocation between within the large caps and mid cap ETF. Now the fund of fund may predominantly invest into domestic equity market or domestic equity ETF tracking the large and mid cap segment based on indices like Nifty 50, Nifty Next 50 or mid cap 150 ETF. Some of the allocation strategies, if we talk about, can be like where the fund of fund will allocate between Nifty 50, Next 50, and Midcap 150 equity based ETF based on broad-based fundamentals like the price to earning ratio, like you can say the current market valuation, the historical trends, and the future expectations. So these are the few pointers where while making a model or while doing any sort of investments, FOF can consider those things. And if those are pointers which are being considered while creating an FOF, then the investor can get a wider exposure into all 3 indices, which is Nifty 50, Next 50, and Midcap 150 with a very lesser cost. And obviously, as I said, because it's a this sort of FOF are based on some rule, so there are chances that you can get some nominal alpha over the underlying index also. So that's where FOF scores a little bit from an investor, new investors point of view who really want to enter into the market and don't have that expertise, or maybe want to do on his own, or DIY investors, or maybe advisor can also advise such products to their investors.
Right, right. So that brings us to the end of the session. But before we let you go, Harsh, one last question. Like what would be your advice be for the investors? And when it comes to performance, like when investors have to choose which particular fund to choose, do you think low cost allocator fund of funds, they can perform better than large cap? And what is the parameter? Like what would you suggest?
Honestly, this was not the situation in India 4 5 years back. And we are very happy that things are changing and these kind of innovations are coming. Now, for an investor, I would say don't ignore this category, but don't invest into each and every new fund offer which comes your way into this space. And the reason why I'm saying this is that these are very early days. Generally, as advisors, we get comfortable with any fund when we have data points over a market cycle, which can be 5 6 7 years. And till now, we don't have data points for a lot of these funds. But going by the initial signs, the numbers are very encouraging. And definitely, these funds should be considered as a very aggressive allocation in the portfolio over a period of time. Now, from an investor point of view, I would say it's primarily a question of beta versus alpha. And there are all kinds of investors. If you are an investor who's happy with market returns, who's okay with a long-term return, whatever market is generating to be a part of his or her portfolio, then I think these funds should be highly skewed toward in the portfolio and a major allocation can happen in that. But then there are investors who are not happy with market return. They say that I have a different risk appetite and I want a different return. I don't want market return. For those investors, it becomes imperative to look at active funds more aggressively than look at passive funds. Honestly, to your question, there is no formula, but my suggestion to an investors would be to look at these funds in a more analytical. At the end of the day, the primary objective of any investor is to be at the efficient frontier. And the way you can reach there is what you should try to achieve. But I'm very happy that though these are early days, but with the kind of effort which is being put in by mutual fund industry, by different fund houses in terms of bringing passive funds, smart beta funds or fund of funds into the market, I'm very sure that in next few years, we will have a situation where these funds would envisage to be a part of the portfolio in a major way. And it's going to be a win-win situation for both product manufacturers as well as investors. And I'm really hoping that time comes fast. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Harsh. And lastly, Umesh, any word of caution for the investors, especially what are the things they can look at before they begin their investment journey?
Yeah, I think most of that Harsh has covered, and I think we are at a very inflection, I think, extreme inflection point from industry perspective, where now we are unlearning what we have learned as an investor. Now we're moving to a new horizon where investors are talking about more from passive perspective. Investors are more tech friendly. They want to go with the advisor with, you can say, unique offerings, some innovation in the investments. But as Harsh mentioned, I would agree with him that investors should not go for blindly for any new NFO launch. They should always consider their requirement, their objective, actually their investment goal, because every investment is, if it is backed by a goal, it can be a right investment, and it can last longer. But if it is not backed by a goal, I think then the chances of that investment or chances of getting returns from that investment cannot be that much great. Be it active, be it passive, be it FOF or ETF, whatever it is, there should be a goal. And keeping that goal in mind, I think now time are changing. Global asset managers are entering into India. The Indian players are also trying to launch and trying to do the innovation which we used to see from a mutual fund side a few years back. After SEBI came with the, you can say, categorization, then the innovation was limited from MF perspective. Now on FOF or from these passive product side, we can see more and more innovative products coming in. So investors should be very thoughtful. Investors should be taking all the risk parameters in perspective while investing or choosing any fund. And I think going ahead, you will see more and more exposure in India as well as outside in India also. So yeah, I would say to every investor, stay updated and happy investing. Thanks.
I think one comment from Harsh on global funds would be good. So anything you want to say, Harsh, on the international funds, and should investors be looking at them as well?
Definitely. And I'll tell you the reasons for that. So, like I was mentioning at the beginning, for any portfolio, the purpose should be meaningful diversification and reducing the correlation. So, imagine a scenario where you're investing your 100 rupees and all that investment is into a similar investment which has a very high correlation. And on a given day, you need to pull out the money, but the entire portfolio is down and you don't have an option to pull out. Similarly, when we look at various asset classes, we have seen that the correlation between various global markets and India is not very, very high. So, for example, if I look at US market and if I take last 10 to 20 years data point, the correlation is around 0.25 to 0.26, depending on the index you are tracking. Similarly, with China, with Japan, with Western Europe, the correlation of Indian market is not very, very high. So, as an investor, you should not be headstrong and you should not be stubborn about having allocation only in your home country. We call in our language home country bias. You shouldn't have that.
Right.
You should look at those opportunities which are available beyond your home country, which can make sense to your portfolio. To give an
Yep.
example, for example, if I look at US tech giants, though we have tech companies in India also, but the work which Indian tech companies do and the work which US tech companies do, it's totally different. And it would be wrong for me to say that those are US tech companies. Those are more or less global tech companies. So all these things which you are using today, and if you can buy those, why not to be having those as a part of the portfolio? Similarly, there are a lot of interesting companies which are available in emerging markets. There are a lot of interesting companies which are available in Europe. So I would say be diversified, have less correlation of assets in your portfolio. If it means adding REITs to your portfolio, add REITs. If it means InvIT, add InvITs. If it means international funds, look at those. If it means gold, look at that. So these are kind of opportunities. If those are available to you, which were not available 20 years back, why to miss out on
Right.
those? So
Right.
definitely look at those.
There are a lot of opportunities within FOF. Thanks a lot for this insightful session. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you so much, Balvi. Thank you. Thanks, Umesh.
Thank you so much.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.